Say it again, she whispered in perfect Korean, her voice cutting through the laughter like a blade. The Mafia boss froze mid-sentence, champagne glass suspended in air. Around the table, 6 armed men went silent. She wasn't supposed to understand. She wasn't supposed to fight back. Subscribe, like, and comment where you are watching from. Hana's hands never shook anymore. 3 years of carrying scalding plates, dodging wandering hands, swallowing insults with a smile. It had turned her into something smooth and unbreakable on the surface. Beneath, that was nobody's business. She moved through Bellissimo's dining room like water around stone. Silent, efficient, forgettable. Exactly how she needed to be. Table 7 needs more wine, Marco barked from the kitchen door, his breath sour with garlic and impatience. The private room. Big spenders. Don't screw it up. Hana nodded, grabbing 2 bottles of Barolo from the cellar. She didn't ask questions. Questions made you memorable. Memorable got you noticed. Noticed got you. She stopped that thought before it finished. The private dining room sat behind frosted glass at the back of the restaurant, soundproofed and exclusive. She'd only served there twice before. Both times, men in expensive suits who barely looked at her. Tips were good. Eye contact was non-existent. She preferred it that way. Hana knocked twice, soft, professional, and pushed the door open with her hip. 7 men sat around a table dressed in black and burgundy. Candles flickered. The air smelled like leather, cologne, and something darker. Danger, maybe, or just money that came from dangerous places. At the head of the table sat a man who didn't need to speak to command the room. Dante Marchesi. She knew the name. Everyone in this neighborhood did. You didn't work in South Brooklyn without learning which names to never say out loud. He owned half the block, maybe more. His family's reach stretched back generations, roots tangled in blood and old-world loyalty. He was younger than she expected, mid-30s maybe, sharp jaw, dark eyes that looked like they'd already seen too much and felt nothing about it. His suit was tailored to perfection. His hands, ringless, scarred along the knuckles, rested on the table like he was bored. He didn't look at her when she entered. None of them did. Refills, Hana said softly, her voice the practiced tone of someone who'd learned to take up as little space as possible. One of the men, bulky, were buzz-cut, eyes like a pit bull, waved dismissively toward the glasses. She moved quietly, pouring wine with steady hands, keeping her gaze down. They spoke in low voices, English mostly, talk of shipments, routes, someone named Gio who wasn't falling in line. She didn't listen. Listening was another way to get noticed. Then, Hana's hand paused, just for half a second. The voice came from Dante's right, a leaner man with slicked back hair and a silver watch too flashy to be tasteful. He'd said it in Korean. Look at this woman. Her pulse kicked once, hard, but her face stayed blank. She kept pouring. Another man laughed. What did you say? Korean, the first man replied in English, smirking. Boss has been practicing. I'm teaching him useful phrases. Dante's eyes flicked up then, just briefly. They landed on Hana, and for a moment, she felt the weight of them, calculating, cold. Then he smiled. It wasn't kind, Dante said, his accent rough but clear. This woman knows nothing. The table erupted in low chuckles. Hana's jaw tightened, but she didn't stop moving. She filled the last glass, set the bottle down gently. Pretty cute, just looks a little stupid, the slick-haired man added, leaning back in his chair. Her fingers curled around the neck of the empty bottle. She could leave. She could smile, nod, walk away. That's what she'd done for 3 years, survived by staying invisible, by letting men like this think she was small. But her mother's voice, buried now, an ocean and a lifetime away, whispered in the back of her mind, never let them make you less, Hana, not even when it's safer. She straightened, turned, looked Dante Marchesi directly in the eyes, and spoke. Say it again. The room went silent. Not the kind of silence that comes from peace, the kind that comes right before an explosion. Dante's expression didn't change immediately, but his eyes, those dark, bored eyes, sharpened. The man beside him choked on his wine. Another one half rose from his seat, hand moving toward his jacket. Hana didn't flinch. Dante raised one hand, a single, lazy gesture, and every man at the table froze. He tilted his head, studying her the way someone might study a painting they'd walked past 100 times and only just now noticed. "You speak Korean," he said. Not a question, a statement. "I do." Her voice was steady, calm, even though her heartbeat was a war drum. His smile returned. Slower this time. More dangerous. "How much did you hear?" "Enough." "And?" She met his gaze without blinking. "And I think your pronunciation needs work." Someone at the table sucked in a breath. Dante laughed. It was a low, rough sound, unexpected, like thunder on a clear day. He leaned back in his chair, fingers drumming once against the table. "What's your name?" "Hana." "Hana." He repeated it, letting the syllables roll. "You always this brave or just stupid?" "I'm still deciding." Another laugh, quieter this time. He waved toward the door. "Go." She didn't wait, didn't bow, didn't apologize. Just turned and walked out, spine straight, heart hammering so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. The door closed behind her. Inside, the men erupted into frantic Korean and Italian. But Hana didn't hear it. She leaned against the hallway wall, hands shaking now, finally, breath coming fast. She'd just challenged a mafia boss, in his own private room, in front of his men. She should have been terrified, but all she felt, God help her, was alive. Hana didn't go back into that room for the rest of the night. Marco did. Then Julia. Then even the manager, Vincent, who never served tables anymore. Every time the frosted glass door opened, she felt her stomach twist. They were talking about her. She wiped down table 12 for the third time, hands moving on autopilot, mind racing. She should leave. Clock out early. Disappear before... "Hana?" Vincent's voice behind her. Low. Careful. She turned. His face was unreadable, but his eyes held something like concern, or maybe fear. "He wants to see you." Her throat went dry. "Who?" Vincent just looked at her. "Oh. Now," she whispered. "Now." The walk back to that private room felt like miles. Her shoes clicked too loud against the tile. Her uniform, black slacks, white button-down, suddenly felt like a costume, like she was pretending to be someone small and she'd just been caught. Vincent knocked once, then opened the door and stepped aside. The room had emptied. Only Dante remained. He sat in the same chair, jacket off now, sleeves rolled to his forearms. A single glass of whiskey sat in front of him, untouched. The candles had burned lower. Shadows moved across his face like something alive. He didn't look up when she entered. "Close the door." She hesitated, just a breath, then did. The click of the latch felt final. "Sit." "I'd rather stand." His eyes lifted then, slower than before, heavier. That wasn't a request. Hana's pulse spiked, but she moved to the chair across from him and sat, spine rigid, hands folded in her lap. Her every instinct screamed run, but running now would be worse. Dante studied her in silence. 10 seconds, 20. Finally, "Where'd you learn Korean?" "Seoul. I live there." "How long?" 15 years. His eyebrow lifted slightly. "You don't look..." "I'm half," she cut in. "My mother was Korean. My father was American military." "Was?" Her jaw tightened. "Was." He nodded slowly, leaning back, fingers tracing the rim of his glass. "You made my men very uncomfortable tonight." "Good." The corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Almost. "You know what I do, Hana. I know what people say you do. And you still spoke to me like that?" She held his gaze. "You spoke to me first." Silence again, but different now, charged. Dante picked up his glass, swirled the amber liquid once, then set it down without drinking. "I could have you fired." "I know. I could have you hurt." Her heartbeat stumbled, but her voice stayed even. "I know that too." "Then why? Why what? Why risk it?" He leaned forward, elbows on the table, eyes locked on hers. "For what? Pride? A moment of satisfaction?" Hana's breath caught, because the answer, the real answer, was something she hadn't said out loud in 3 years. Because I was tired, she whispered, of being invisible. Something flickered across Dante's face, something raw and quickly buried. He stood abruptly, and she flinched despite herself, but he didn't move toward her. He walked to the window, hands in his pockets, staring out at the Brooklyn street below. You start tomorrow night, he said quietly. Same time. You'll serve only this room. Only me. Hannah's stomach dropped. What? Double your usual pay. You'll be safe. No one touches you. No one disrespects you. I don't. He turned and the look in his eyes stopped her cold. I'm not asking, Hannah. She should have said no, should have walked out, but the way he looked at her, like he saw her, not as a waitress, not as invisible, as real. Why? She breathed. Dante's expression softened, just barely. Because, he said, voice low and rough, I'm tired of being surrounded by people who are too afraid to tell me the truth. Hannah didn't tell anyone about the arrangement. Not Marco, not the other servers. Certainly not her roommate Claire, who already thought working at Bellissimo was playing with fire. She just showed up the next night at 9, heart pounding, and knocked on that frosted glass door. Dante was alone again. This time he looked up when she entered. What, you came? You didn't give me a choice. There's always a choice, Hannah. She set down the wine bottle harder than necessary. Is there? His eyes narrowed, but he didn't answer. For 2 weeks it continued like this. Every night she served him in that private room. Sometimes he had guests, dangerous-looking men who spoke in code and left envelopes on the table. Sometimes he was alone, working through paperwork with a pen that probably cost more than her rent. He never mocked her again, but he watched her, constantly, like he was trying to solve something, and she hated how aware of him she'd become. The way he moved, controlled, deliberate. The scar on his left hand he never explained. How he drank his coffee black, but his whiskey neat. How his voice changed when he spoke Italian versus English, versus the broken Korean he'd stopped using entirely. She hated that she'd started noticing. You're quiet tonight, Dante said on the 15th night, startling her out of her thoughts. Hannah set down his espresso. I'm always quiet. No, you're careful. There's a difference. She froze, hands still on the saucer. He leaned back, eyes never leaving her face. What are you running from? Her stomach clenched. I'm not. Everyone who works this hard to be invisible is running from something. His voice was soft, too knowing. I recognize it because I've seen it before. In who? Myself. The word hung between them like confession. Hannah pulled her hand back slowly. I should go. Stay. Mr. Marchesi. Dante, he corrected. And I mean it. Sit. Just for a minute. Every rational thought screamed no, but she sat. He poured a second espresso from the carafe, slid it across the table toward her. I don't drink on the job, she said. You're not serving right now. You're talking. We don't talk. We do now. Hannah stared at the cup, at his hands, scarred and steady, at the way the candlelight softened the hard edges of his face. Why do you care? She whispered. Dante was quiet for a long moment. Then, because you looked at me like I was human, not a monster, not a king. Just a man who said something cruel. He paused. No one's done that in a very long time. Her chest tightened. I should be afraid of you, she said. You should be. But I'm not. His eyes darkened. That, he said quietly, Haro is the most dangerous thing you've said yet. Footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. Sharp, urgent. The door burst open. The slick-haired man from the first night stood there, breathless, eyes wild. Boss, we've got a problem. It's the Kims. Dante's entire demeanor shifted, stone cold in an instant. He stood, jaw tight. How bad? They know about the girl. Hannah's blood turned to ice. Dante's eyes cut to her, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw fear. Pack a bag. You have 10 minutes. Hannah stood frozen in her tiny apartment, watching Dante's men sweep through her bedroom like shadows. Efficient, silent, terrifying. I don't understand. The Kims run the Korean syndicate in Queens. Dante stood by her window, scanning the street below. His gun was visible now, holstered beneath his jacket. 3 weeks ago, I intercepted one of their shipments. They've been looking for leverage ever since. Her stomach dropped. And I'm leverage. You're a Korean woman who spends every night alone with me in a private room. His voice was tight, angry, but not at her. They've been watching. They know your face, your name, where you live. This is my fault, she whispered. I should never have. Don't. He turned, eyes blazing. This is my fault. I made you visible when you were trying to disappear. One of his men appeared in the doorway. Car's ready. Dante nodded, then looked at Hana. We go, now. The safe house was in Staten Island, a quiet brownstone that looked like every other on the block. Dante's men stationed themselves outside. Inside it was sparse, clean, impersonal. Hana sat on the couch, hands shaking, reality finally crashing down. She'd spent 3 years hiding, building a small, invisible life. Now it was gone. Dante poured 2 glasses of whiskey, handed her one. I don't drink, she said automatically. Tonight you do. She took it, sipped. The burn steadied her. He sat across from her, elbows on his knees, head bowed. For the first time he looked tired, human. Why did you leave Seoul? He asked quietly. Hana's throat tightened. Why does anyone leave? That's not an answer. She stared into her glass. My mother died when I was 16. My father remarried 6 months later. Didn't want a half-Korean reminder of his old life. Her voice cracked. I worked as a translator for a shipping company. Didn't ask questions. Then one day I translated the wrong conversation for the wrong people. Dante's eyes lifted. When I found out they were trafficking women, she continued, I went to the police. The police were paid off. So I ran. Her hands trembled. I've been running ever since. Silence. Then Dante moved, slow, deliberate, and sat beside her, not touching, just close. I was 15 when my father was killed, he said, voice low. Shot in our kitchen while my mother made dinner. The men who did it worked for him. He exhaled slowly. I learned early. Trust no one. Feel nothing. Survive. Is that why you're still alone? She whispered. His jaw clenched. I'm not alone. I have men, family, power. That's not the same. He turned to her then, and the rawness in his eyes stole her breath. No, he admitted. It's not. Their faces were inches apart. Dante, she breathed. Uri, this is dangerous. I know. We barely know each other. I know that too. Then why does this feel real? He finished. She nodded. He reached up slowly, fingertips brushing her cheek, tentative, like he'd forgotten how to be gentle. Because maybe, he whispered, we're both tired of surviving. Maybe we want to live. Her eyes closed. His forehead touched hers, and for one perfect fragile moment, the world outside didn't exist. The gunshot shattered the window at 3 a.m. Dante moved on instinct, pulling Hana to the floor, covering her body with his as glass rained down like deadly snow. Stay down, he barked. More shots, shouting outside in Korean, his men returning fire. Hana's ears rang. Her heart slammed against her ribs. This was real. We have to move, Dante said, pulling her toward the back hallway. There's a car 2 blocks south. My guy's waiting. What about your men? They'll hold them off. That's their job. He gripped her hand tighter. You're mine to protect. They ran. Out the back door, through narrow alleys slick with rain. Her lungs burned. Her mind screamed. But Dante's hand never let go. They rounded a corner and stopped cold. 5 men blocked the alley. The Kim Syndicate. The leader stepped forward, gun raised, speaking rapid Korean. Give us the girl. Walk away. This ends clean. Dante's grip on his own weapon tightened. Not happening. She's nothing to you, the man spat. A waitress. Why die for her? Hana felt Dante's hand tremble, just once in hers. Then he did something she never expected. He lowered his gun and stepped in front of her completely. You want her? Dante's voice was granite. You go through me. The leader laughed. You'd start a war over this? Yes. The word echoed. Hana's breath caught. He was choosing her, knowing what it would cost, knowing he might not survive. Dante, she whispered. I'm done running, he said quietly, not turning around. And I'm done letting fear choose for me. Time crystallized. Then, sirens. Distant but growing closer. The leader cursed in Korean, gesturing to his men. This isn't over, Marchese. They vanished into the shadows. Dante exhaled shakily, finally turning to Hana. His face was pale, fierce, alive. You could have let me go, she breathed. Ended this. No, he said simply. I couldn't. Why? He cupped her face in both hands, thumbs brushing away tears she hadn't realized were falling. Arda, because you're the first person in 20 years who made me remember what it feels like to be more than what I do. More than this life. His voice cracked. You make me want to be better. I'm broken, Dante. So am I. He pressed his forehead to hers. Maybe that's the point. Maybe we fix each other. She kissed him then, desperate, trembling, real, and he kissed her back like she was oxygen. 6 months later. Hana stood in the doorway of a small cafe in Red Hook, watching the morning sun paint the Brooklyn streets gold. Hana's table, the sign read, her cafe, her dream, funded by a silent investor who showed up every morning at 7 for black coffee and her smile. Dante walked in, suit traded for a simple sweater, shadows still in his eyes but lighter now. You're late, she teased. Traffic. He kissed her temple. How's business? Good, real. He smiled. A real one, the kind that reached his eyes. Yeah, he said softly, pulling her close. It is. Outside, the city moved on. But inside, two people who'd spent lifetimes hiding had finally found home. In each other.